Hello, my name is Debbie Bibo, and I'm a picture book agent, which means that I represent and work with the authors and illustrators of children's picture books. So the people who write the stories and who draw the pictures, the creators. I live in Milan, Italy, and I represent authors and illustrators from around the world, many of whose native language isn't English. So I work with people from countries like Italy and France and Spain and Germany and Russia and Japan, Taiwan, Malaysia, Brazil, etc. The authors do speak English, but English isn't their first language. So what I like to do is read their books in English, because these books are translated into English, and so I would like to give them a voice in English. So let's start with, our first book is Good Morning Neighbor, and it's a book by the author Davide Cali, who is Italian, and the illustrator Maria Dek, who is Polish. Maria, as we'll see from the illustrations, lives in the oldest forest in Europe, which is in Poland. And we'll kind of get that idea when we see the illustrations. So let's begin. Good morning, neighbor. A mouse wanted to make an omelet. To make an omelet, the mouse needed an egg, but he didn't have one. So he thought, I'll go and ask my neighbor, the blackbird. Good morning, neighbor. Do you have an egg that I could use to make an omelet? I'm sorry I don't, said the blackbird, but I do have flour. With an egg, we could make a cake. Let's go and ask my neighbor, the dormouse. So there they are. There's the mouse and the blackbird. A mouse and a blackbird wanted to make a cake. Good morning, neighbor. Do you have an egg that we could use to make a cake? You see the dormouse? The dormouse here? I'm sorry, I don't, said the dormouse, but I do have butter. You'll need butter to make a cake. For the egg, we can ask my neighbor, the mole. A mouse, a blackbird, and a dormouse wanted to make a cake. Where are they going? Good morning, neighbor. Do you have an egg that we could use to make a cake? I'm sorry, I don't, said the mole, but I do have sugar. You'll definitely need sugar to make a cake. Perhaps my neighbor the hedgehog will loan us an egg. And there they are in the mole's den. A mouse, a blackbird, a dormouse, and a mole wanted to make a cake. Good morning, neighbor. Do you have an egg that we could use to make a cake? There they are. I'm sorry I don't, said the hedgehog. What kind of cake do you want to make? I do have apples. Maybe we can make an apple cake. My neighbor the raccoon might have an egg. Check out all those apples the hedgehog has. A mouse, a blackbird, a dormouse, a mole, and a hedgehog wanted to make a cake. Good morning, neighbor. Do you have an egg that we could use to make a cake? I'm sorry I don't, said the raccoon, but I do have cinnamon. Cinnamon can add flavor. Let's go and see if my neighbor the lizard has an egg. A mouse, a blackbird, a dormouse, a mole, a hedgehog, and a raccoon wanted to make a cake. Good morning, neighbor. Do you have an egg that we could use to make a cake? I'm sorry I don't, said the lizard, but I do have raisins. Check him out, pitching the raisins. For the egg, we can ask my neighbor the bat. A mouse, a blackbird, a dormouse, a mole, a hedgehog, a raccoon, and a lizard wanted to make a cake. They already had, can you guys remember what they already have? Let's see, flour, butter, sugar, apples, cinnamon, and, raisins. The only thing missing was the egg. Of course I have an egg, said the bat. I mean, why wouldn't he? The neighbors finally had all the ingredients they needed, and so they began. The blackbird poured the flour. The bat broke the egg. The dormouse added the butter, and the mole stirred in the sugar. The mouse mixed the dough, then the hedgehog added the apples. The raccoon sprinkled the cinnamon, and the lizard topped it with raisins. There they are, all working together. All we need now is an oven. Let's ask our neighbor the owl, said the lizard. A mouse, a blackbird, a dormouse, a mole, a hedgehog, a raccoon, a lizard, and a bat wanted to make a cake. The cake was ready to be baked. All they needed was an oven. So up they go, up the tree to the owl's house. Good morning, neighbor. Could we use your oven to bake a cake? Why, certainly, said the owl. So all the animals joined the owl in her kitchen. The cake finally came out of the oven, and it was perfect. Look at, there they all are in the owl's house. But when it was time to serve it, the owl asked, how many slices should I cut? The blackbird put in the flour, so she gets a slice. The dormouse put in the butter, so he gets a slice. The mole offered the sugar, so obviously she gets a slice. The hedgehog provided the apples, so he gets a slice too. A slice also goes to the raccoon for adding the cinnamon, and a slice goes to the lizard for pitching in the raisins. Lastly, a slice goes to the bat for putting in the egg. Oh, and we must not forget a slice for the owl for the use of her oven. So that makes 8 slices in all. What about me? Asked the mouse. Yeah, poor mouse. You didn't put in anything, said the dormouse, so you don't get a slice. And anyway, it's hard to cut a cake into 9 slices. The mouse went away sadly while the other animals began to divide the cake. Well, said the blackbird, if the mouse hadn't asked me for an egg, I wouldn't have thought about giving him flour to make the cake. And if he hadn't asked me for an egg, I wouldn't have put in the butter, said the dormouse. And I wouldn't have offered the sugar, said the mole. And I wouldn't have pitched in the apple, said the hedgehog. And I wouldn't have added the cinnamon, said the raccoon. And I wouldn't have pitched in the raisins, said the lizard. And we wouldn't have a cake to share, said the bat. You're right, said the owl. And so the blackbird, the dormouse, the mole, the hedgehog, the raccoon, the lizard, the bat, and the owl cut the cake into 9 slices. Hooray! Which wasn't that hard after all. And what's left? Just the crumbs, so they all got to eat the cake. The end. And we have the cast. We have the whole cast with the ingredients they each contributed, with the mouse at the top. Because what did the mouse put in? Why, the idea, of course. So that's good night, good morning, neighbor. And before we finish, I wanted to ask if any of you know how to say good morning, neighbor in different languages, in other languages. So Davide, who wrote the book in Italian, originally wrote it as, how we say good morning, neighbor, buongiorno vicino. In Spanish, we say buenos dias, vecino, vecina. In French, bonjour voisin or voisine. In Japanese, ohayo rinjin. And in Dutch, excuse my pardon my pronunciation, good morgen, beste boer. So if you know any other ways of saying good morning, neighbor, or if you want to look it up, you can try it out perhaps on a neighbor. Okay, that's it for today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.